For years, I believed the sound of a football crowd was the sound of my family holding together. My name is Nathan, and when I married Megan, her son Tyler was 9 years old. He was thin, restless, and already obsessed with football. His biological father appeared when it suited him, usually with a gift, a promise, or an excuse, but I was the one who stayed. I bought Tyler his first real cleats. Then better ones. I paid for private training, tournament fees, hotel rooms, team dinners, replacement helmets, and enough gasoline to cross half the state. I learned every route to every field. I carried folding chairs through rain and mud. I stood in the bleachers until my legs went numb, shouting his name whenever he made a play. I never missed a game. Not once. People assumed I was his father. I never corrected them. Sometimes Tyler did. At first, it was small. He's my stepdad. Then it became colder. He's just Nathan. Megan always told me not to take it personally. She said Tyler was confused, that loyalty to his biological father made everything complicated. So I swallowed it. I kept paying. I kept driving. I kept showing up. Then came the argument that ended something inside me. Tyler had skipped practice and lied about it. When I confronted him, he exploded. Megan stood near the kitchen sink silent, while he called me controlling and accused me of pretending to be someone I wasn't. "You're not real family," he said. The room went still. I remember looking at Megan, waiting for her to say something. She lowered her eyes. That silence hurt more than Tyler's words. The next day, he told his friends I was nobody to him. Then his coaches. Then other parents. He said I was just a man married to his mother, pretending to be his father because I wanted attention. I heard about it from another parent after practice. I didn't confront him. I didn't defend myself. I simply listened. That evening, I opened the calendar where I had marked every practice, tournament, fundraiser, and road game. Then I deleted them one by one. I told Megan, "From now on, Tyler's football belongs to you." She stared at me. "What does that mean?" "It means you drive him. You organize the hotels. You pay the team fees. You replace the gear. You handle the emergencies. Nathan, you can't just stop." I looked at her. "He said I'm not family?" "You said nothing. I'm only respecting the decision you both allowed him to make." The first person to notice was the coach. For years I had arrived early, carried equipment, collected money, organized carpools, and stayed late until every child had been picked up. When I disappeared, he called me twice. I didn't answer. Soon, the machinery I had quietly kept running began to fail. Megan forgot a tournament registration deadline. Tyler arrived late to practice because she was stuck at work. A road trip collapsed when 2 parents backed out, and nobody stepped forward to replace them. Before, I would have solved it. Now I stayed home. I heard Megan arguing on the phone, begging other parents for rides. I watched Tyler search the garage for equipment he had assumed would magically replace itself. I saw the panic in Megan's face when she added hotel costs, fuel, meals, and fees together. "You know how much this costs?" she asked me one night. "Yes," I said. She flinched. I had known for years. Tyler began missing practices. Then games. His playing time dropped. The coach finally pulled him aside and asked why the man who had never missed anything had suddenly vanished. Tyler came home quiet that evening. A few days later, I found him sitting on the back steps with his football beside him. For once, there was no anger in his face. "Coach asked about you," he said. I waited. "He said you did more for the team than most fathers." The word hung between us. Fathers. Tyler looked down at his hands. "I didn't know you handled all of it." "No," I said. "You only noticed when it stopped." He nodded, and I could see the truth reaching him slowly, painfully. A few weeks later, Megan came to me after dinner. She admitted she had taken my support for granted. She said she had stayed silent because confronting Tyler was difficult, and she had assumed I would endure whatever was said. That confession nearly ended our marriage. "You thought I was strong enough to be humiliated forever," I told her. "That isn't love, Megan. That's convenience," she cried. I didn't comfort her. Not yet. The apology that mattered came 3 days later. Tyler spoke to his coach first. Then his teammates. Then several parents who had heard him call me nobody. Finally, he stood in front of me in our living room. He didn't beg for new gear. He didn't ask for a ride. He said, "I was ashamed that my real dad wasn't there, so I punished the person who was." For the first time, I believed he understood. I told him respect was not something he could demand when he needed help. It had to exist when there was nothing to gain. We reconciled slowly. Not with promises. With actions. Tyler began thanking his mother for every ride. He worked weekends to help cover equipment costs. When people asked who I was, he no longer called me just Nathan. He called me family. Blood had never placed me in those bleachers. Love had. Choice had. Sacrifice had. And Tyler finally learned that the people who stay are often the ones we wound most carelessly, because we convince ourselves they will never leave. I stayed. But I stopped allowing my love to be treated like an obligation. Was I wrong to step away until they understood what my presence was worth? Or would continuing to endure have taught them that family can be disrespected without consequence? Reconciliation did not repair the house overnight. It only stopped the bleeding. For weeks, Tyler moved around me carefully, as though one careless word might reopen everything. He woke earlier. He packed his own equipment. He checked the practice schedule without being reminded. When Megan was working late, he called teammates instead of automatically expecting me to drive. I noticed every change. I said nothing. Apologies are easy in a quiet living room. Character is revealed later, when the shame fades and convenience begins whispering again. Tyler had apologized to me, but I needed to know whether he had understood what he had done or merely feared losing football. There was a difference. A painful one. The first test came when his team qualified for a tournament 3 states away. In the past, I would have handled everything. I would have compared hotels, organized transportation, collected money from parents, checked every piece of equipment, and built a schedule detailed enough to survive any disaster. This time, I watched Megan stare at the registration email. "The deadline is Friday," she said. I saw it. She waited for me to offer help. I did not. Tyler entered the kitchen and looked from her to me. For a moment, I saw the old expectation in his face. It appeared like a shadow, then disappeared. "I can ask Coach what still needs to be done," he said. Megan nodded slowly. He spent the next 2 evenings calling parents. Some ignored him. Others complained. One father laughed and told him that Nathan had always taken care of these things. Tyler repeated that sentence to me later. There was no bitterness in his voice. Only understanding. "I thought you just liked controlling everything," he admitted. "I didn't know everybody depended on you." I looked at him across the table. "They depended on me because I never let anything fail." He lowered his eyes. "And I made that look like pretending." The tournament nearly collapsed anyway. 2 families could not afford the hotel. Another parent's vehicle broke down. Megan discovered that the team still owed an extra participation fee. I could have fixed it all before breakfast. Instead, Tyler worked. He convinced the coach to arrange shared rooms. He found a parent willing to lend a van. He used money from his weekend job to cover part of the missing fee. When that still was not enough, he stood before his teammates and admitted the truth. "My stepfather used to pay the difference," he told them. "I treated him like he didn't matter, so he stopped. This problem exists because I never appreciated what he was doing." The coach called me that night. He said it in front of everyone. He told me. "No excuses." I stood alone in the garage, holding the phone against my ear. Tyler's old helmets sat on a shelf above me, each one purchased after hours of overtime he had never seen. Did he mean it? I asked. I think he finally does. I wanted that answer to heal me. It did not. But it opened a door. The morning of the tournament, Tyler carried his bags to Megan's car. Rain fell heavily, turning the driveway black beneath the headlights. I watched from the front window as he tried to fit everything into the crowded trunk. Then he stopped. He looked toward the house. I could see the struggle in him. He wanted me there, but he was afraid to ask. Perhaps he understood that asking would make the apology look like another transaction. I stepped outside with my keys. Tyler stared at me. I'm not organizing the trip, I said. I'm not paying the fees. I'm not rescuing anybody. His face tightened, preparing for disappointment. But I'll watch you play. He nodded once. That was all. The drive was quiet. Megan sat beside me, Tyler behind us with his headphones resting unused around his neck. Somewhere beyond the highway, dawn began breaking through the clouds. At the field, several parents greeted me with surprise. The coach shook my hand and held it longer than usual. Tyler said nothing about me until another player asked who had driven him. He looked directly at the boy. My dad, he said. The words struck me harder than his rejection had. Not because I had been waiting to hear it. Because this time, he understood its cost. Tyler played badly during the first half. He missed an easy pass and was pulled from the field. Months earlier, he would have blamed the quarterback, the coach, the weather, anyone but himself. This time, he sat on the bench and listened. When he returned, he played with patience. He blocked for another boy instead of chasing attention. Late in the final quarter, he made the tackle that preserved their lead. The crowd erupted. I stood, but I did not shout. Tyler found me in the stands anyway. After the game, he approached while his teammates celebrated. Mud covered his uniform. His face was exhausted, but calm. Did you see it? He asked. I saw everything. He looked down. I'm sorry it took losing you to understand you were there. I placed my hand on his shoulder. You didn't lose me. You lost the version of me who accepted being used. He nodded. That distinction became the foundation of what we rebuilt. Megan changed too. She stopped asking me to tolerate disrespect for the sake of peace. When Tyler crossed the line, she corrected him before I had to speak. More importantly, she began noticing the invisible work, the bills, planning, repairs, and sacrifices she had once treated like background noise. Our family survived. But survival did not erase the scar. It taught us to look at it. Tyler eventually earned back my trust, not through one apology, but through hundreds of ordinary choices. He showed gratitude when no one was watching. He defended me when his biological father mocked our relationship. He learned that love does not excuse cruelty, and forgiveness does not cancel consequences. I returned to the stands. Not because they needed my money. Not because Megan was overwhelmed. I returned because Tyler finally understood that my presence was a gift, not a debt he was entitled to collect. Family was never proven by what he called me in public. It was proven by what we chose after the worst words had already been spoken. So tell me, was I right to make him rebuild what he had broken, or should a father forgive before respect has been earned again? Life has a strange way of testing whether forgiveness is real. For several months, everything seemed different. Tyler thanked his mother when she drove him to practice. He cleaned his equipment without being reminded. When I repaired something around the house, he quietly offered to help instead of disappearing into his room. The changes were small. That was exactly why I trusted them. Real growth rarely announces itself. It reveals itself in ordinary days, when nobody is keeping score. One Saturday morning, Tyler walked into the garage while I was changing the brakes on my truck. Need another pair of hands? He asked. I looked at him for a moment. You know how? No. Then you'll learn. For the next 3 hours, we worked side by side. He listened more than he spoke. Every mistake became another lesson, and every lesson reminded me how much of fatherhood happens outside stadiums and school events. Not in grand speeches. In grease-covered hands. A week later, football season reached its biggest game. The championship. The stands were packed long before kickoff. Parents filled every row wearing school colors, cameras hanging from their necks. The coach stopped me near the entrance. "I'm glad you're back," he said. "So am I." He smiled. "You know, when you disappeared, the whole team felt it. We thought we lost our best volunteer." I shook my head. "You lost more than that." He understood immediately. Before the game began, Tyler gathered with his teammates near midfield. I watched him scanning the crowd until our eyes met. Instead of looking away like he once had, he raised one hand. Just a simple wave. Nothing dramatic. Yet it meant more than any touchdown. The game was brutal. Rain turned the field into mud. Players slipped on every drive. Tyler took several hard hits but kept getting back up. Late in the fourth quarter, with the score tied, his team faced one final defensive stand. The opposing running back broke through the line. For one terrifying second, nobody stood between him and the end zone. Except Tyler. He threw himself forward without hesitation. The collision echoed across the stadium. Silence followed. When the pile cleared, Tyler was still holding the runner's legs. The whistle blew. The championship belonged to his team. Parents rushed onto the field. Players shouted and hugged each other. Cameras flashed from every direction. I stayed where I was. Then Tyler broke away from the celebration. Ignoring reporters, teammates, and even the trophy presentation, he walked straight toward the stands. Toward me. When he reached the fence separating spectators from the field, he didn't speak immediately. He simply held out the game ball. "This belongs to you." I frowned. "No." "Yes." He swallowed hard. "You carried me long before I learned to carry myself." Around us, conversations faded. Several parents watched quietly. Even the coach stopped walking. Tyler took a slow breath. "I spent years telling people you weren't my real family." His voice shook. "I was wrong." He turned toward the crowd. Loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, he continued. "This man never missed a game. He paid for camps, equipment, travel, and everything I needed. He cheered louder than anybody else. I told people he was pretending to be my father. He looked back at me. The truth is, he showed me what a father actually looks like." Nobody applauded. Nobody interrupted. The silence carried more respect than noise ever could. I climbed down the steps and stopped in front of him. "You don't owe me a speech." "I know." "You don't owe me a football." "I know." "Then why?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because people heard me disrespect you." He glanced around the stadium. "They deserve to hear me tell the truth." For a long moment, neither of us moved. Finally, I accepted the ball. Not because it was a trophy. Because it represented something far more valuable. Responsibility accepted. Gratitude earned. Respect restored. Later that evening, our house felt different. Not happier. Stronger. Megan prepared dinner while Tyler washed the dishes before anyone asked. We laughed more naturally than we had in years. Nothing felt forced anymore. Before going upstairs, Tyler stopped beside my chair. "I know I can't erase what I said." "No. But I can choose what I say from now on." I nodded. "That's all any of us can do." After he left the room, Megan sat beside me. "I almost lost both of you," she whispered. I reached for her hand. "We almost lost ourselves." She squeezed my fingers. "I'll never stay silent again." Neither of us needed to explain what she meant. Silence had nearly destroyed our family once. Truth had rebuilt it. Years later, people still remember Tyler's championship tackle. I remember something else. A frightened young man walking across a muddy field, carrying a football toward the person he had once claimed wasn't family. That walk required more courage than any play he ever made. Because winning a game lasts one season. Admitting you were wrong can change an entire lifetime. Whenever people ask me whether blood defines a family, I simply smile. I've stood in packed stadiums filled with strangers. I've also stood beside a boy who wasn't born my son but chose, through humility and respect, to become exactly that. And in the end, choice proved stronger than blood ever could. The championship trophy gathered dust long before the lesson ever faded. Football seasons end. Character keeps playing. Summer arrived, and with it came the annual team banquet. Families filled the community center with laughter, photographs, and stories from the season. Coaches handed out certificates while parents applauded every player, as if each one had won the championship alone. A year earlier, I would have been the first person arranging tables, setting up chairs, carrying coolers, and making sure every detail ran smoothly. This year I accepted only one task: showing up. The coach found me before the ceremony. "I tried running things without you," he admitted with a tired smile. "Turns out you've been doing the work of 3 volunteers. I wasn't looking for recognition." "I know." He paused. "But maybe you deserve some." His words stayed with me as the ceremony began. One by one, players walked across the stage. When Tyler's name was called, the applause lasted longer than usual. Not because he had become the team's biggest star, but because everyone remembered how much he had changed. After accepting his certificate, he surprised the entire room. Instead of returning to his seat, he walked toward the microphone. The coach looked confused but stepped aside. "I won't be long," Tyler said. The room became quiet. "Last season taught me more than football." He looked around until his eyes found mine. "I used to think support was automatic." Several parents exchanged curious glances. "I thought people who loved you would always be there, no matter how badly you treated them." His voice remained steady. "I was wrong." Nobody interrupted. "I embarrassed someone who spent years sacrificing for me. I told people he wasn't my family." The truth is, I only understood what he meant after he stopped carrying responsibilities that were never really his. Every sentence landed heavier than the last. "My teammates see a championship season." He smiled faintly. "I remember the season I learned gratitude." The audience applauded before he could continue. Not loud. Just honest. When the banquet ended, parents approached me one after another. Several apologized for believing Tyler's old stories. Others admitted they had assumed I was simply another over-involved stepfather trying too hard. One father shook my hand firmly. "I judged you without knowing anything." "So did Tyler." He nodded thoughtfully. "Looks like both of us learned something." Driving home, Megan remained unusually quiet. Finally she spoke. "I spent years worrying about keeping peace." I glanced toward her. "And?" "I confused peace with avoiding difficult conversations." Neither of us said anything else. We didn't need to. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Comfortable. Later that week, Tyler came into my workshop carrying an old photograph. It showed his first football game. He couldn't have been older than 9. I stood behind him with one hand on his shoulder, both of us smiling at the camera as though the future couldn't possibly surprise us. "I almost threw this away once," Tyler admitted. "Why?" "I was angry." He stared at the picture for a long moment. "Now I realize I would have been throwing away proof that somebody stayed." I took the photograph from his hands. The edges had faded. The memory had not. "You know," I said quietly, "being a father isn't measured by birthdays or last names." He nodded. "It's measured by ordinary Tuesdays." He looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" "I mean the mornings nobody remembers. The practices. The long drives. The broken equipment. The homework. The bills. The waiting. The worrying." I handed the picture back. Life isn't built by big moments. It's built by thousands of small ones. He smiled. "I understand that now." "I know." That autumn, another father joined the team. His wife had recently remarried, and he struggled with his new stepson. One evening he asked if we could talk after practice. "I don't know if anything I do matters," he confessed. I recognized the exhaustion in his eyes. Years earlier, I had carried that same look. "It matters," I answered. "But don't make the mistake I made." "What mistake?" "Never confuse sacrifice with self-respect." He frowned. "You can give someone everything." I looked toward the empty field where Tyler had spent so many afternoons chasing impossible dreams. "But if they refuse to value you, stepping back isn't cruelty. It's honesty." He thanked me before leaving. Watching him walk away, I realized something had finally changed inside me. I no longer measured my worth by how much I could provide. I measured it by the respect we shared. That lesson had cost our family months of pain. It was expensive. It was necessary. Sometimes people still ask whether Tyler is really my son. I never answer with explanations anymore. I simply remember the frightened boy who became a responsible young man, the angry teenager who learned humility, and the family that nearly destroyed itself before discovering what love actually required. Blood introduced some families. Choice built ours. And every single day after that, we chose each other again.